and welcome to the Room of Rock with Ted and I. Now this time in the Room of Rock we're going to give you a look at our vintage Electro Harmonix Badstone phase shifter, still in its original box with its original instructions in there. So if that's something that interests you and that's something you want to hear, stick around. If you like what we do here in the Room of Rock, please think about giving us the old thumbs up and maybe even subscribing. And if you do subscribe, please don't forget to click the little notification bell so then you get notified when we upload new content. And leave a comment, even if you don't like or don't want to subscribe. Leave a comment. We always read them and we always find them interesting. Well, here it is, our Electro Harmonix Badstone vintage analog phase shifter. This is the big brother to the small stone, which you've probably heard of. Still in its original box, and in the box as well as the unit is, I believe, its instructions and its warranty card. So what I'll do, I'll pull the camera in a bit closer and give you a look at the controls on the unit, because it's, as usual with Electro Harmonix stuff of this era, a little bit quirky. I've brought the camera in a bit closer now, so hopefully you can see the unit a bit better. You've got a bypass switch here on the top, which when I got it wasn't wired as a true bypass. Now I altered it to true bypass. It's something I could reverse because I kept a wiring diagram of how I did it. But the reason I did it was cropping a lot of treble out of the signal when it was in bypass mode, which was really frustrating when you were playing a gig or something. It wasn't like you were just recording with it in and taking it out, but when you were gigging with it, which I was doing at the time, it was a pain because it was sacrificing your bypass signal. So that has been altered. Now you've got three controls. You've got a manual sweep control over here. So if you alter the switch here to manual mode, then that means you can dial in the exact point of the cycle of the phasing to get kind of like a cocked wah-wah sound. So you can actually set it stationary, which is probably usable or useful maybe for a certain piece, a certain intro sound or something you're after. But the more normal setting is with the switch over here into auto mode, and then you've got your feedback, which is basically the depth of effect, and then you've got your rate, which is obviously the sweep rate on the phasing. Now interestingly, with this being a 70s Electro Harmonix thing, the controls work in a rather unusual way. For example, minimum depth, minimum rate is there with the knobs pointing up like that. So if I hold it upright, so pointing up like that. Maximum is there, so completely opposite to where you'd expect them to be. And it doesn't even work the same as it did on the hot tubes I had from a similar era. They were sort of side mounted, so maximum with it pointing up like that and minimum pointing over there. So for example, that's minimum depth and that is maximum speed of the sweep. On here you've got your input jack, your output jack, that's the switch for manual or auto mode, and then there you've got like a 3.5 headphone socket, which is a 9-volt DC power input. At this kind of time there wasn't a lot of standardization in terms of whether things did take mains power via an adapter or not, or what sockets they used for the power. They were all different, and that's what that is there. So that's the controls, and then the bottom of the box there's nothing, because the only way you get in there, as I mentioned, I think, or you'll see, is you undo these 4 screws to replace the battery. The only way to change the battery on the pedal is to remove the 4 cover screws and take the top of the unit off, which is a bit of a faff, especially if you needed to replace the battery mid-gig. Whilst I had the unit apart to put a battery in it, I took the opportunity to give the pots and switches a clean up. You can see the battery is held in place by a cut-out foam compartment, and the unit can be run from either a 9-volt power supply as well as the battery, which in this case is a PP3. As you can see, the shafts on the pots are colour coded, just as they were on the Electro Harmonix hot tubes. Here you can see the full internal layout. Ignore the A and B tags on the wires, that was from me labelling them up when I converted it to true bypass, as both the wires here are yellow. These next 2 shots give you a look at the components on the circuit board. I was reluctant to pull the circuit board right out due to the amount of wires attached to it. Interestingly, this circuit board has a capacitor and a resistor joined in series on the rear of the board, looking very much like an afterthought. This final shot shows the battery in its foam housing, with the case ready to be screwed back together. One thing I would point out is obviously you can see it's quite a big unit, and if you use that in conjunction with the hot tubes from the similar era, you can see how much pedal space that takes up. I mean, pedal boards back then weren't really a thing, but if they were, you'd be taking up an awful lot of space on one with just 2 effects. Now, by way of comparison, if I show you, this is a standard Boss pedal that we all know and love. You can see how much more compact that is, and you know, the mini pedals they make now that don't take batteries, they're even smaller, so that's quite a big unit for what it does. So let's get it set up, get the old amp turned on, and you can hear what it sounds like. The phaser's all now connected up, so the first thing we do is give you a listen to our clean sound on a single coil neck pickup of the Strat. So that's a clean sound. We've got the phaser now set at 12 o'clock, which is kind of upside down because it's Electro Harmonix and it's Electro Harmonix of the 70s. So this is in auto mode. I always think of it as quite a funky kind of pedal, so let's turn the depth up a bit. quite a lush sound. Let's now speed the rate up. Rate sped up a bit more. Now when you speed the rate up a bit more, it starts getting a bit wild. So you can hear how fast that is. Now I believe the reissue pedals either don't go as fast, they certainly go slower. I'm not sure, it's one way or the other, but I think they did adjust the sweep rate. And we'll push the rate up a little bit more. Now to me it's almost becoming like a sort of undersea effect. What I do now is I'll push it up a little bit more, and as you'll hear it starts to get very strange. Now that I think is about as fast as it goes, where you can actually still pick out its phasing. But that really does sound kind of under the sea to me. Now you could use that probably as an effect in something if you were doing some intro or maybe a fill, but then I'll push it up a little bit more. Now it's almost kind of gone Dalek-y on us. Or bed springs. Believe it or not, it will go a little bit faster still. So let's try that. It's almost become like a kind of ring modulator effect. I think it will go a whisker quicker still. It almost almost sounds like bed springs or a distortion. Let's pull the rate back to something a little bit more sensible. So I've pulled the rate back now to just under halfway. So I think, as you can hear, it's a very lush sound. Let's pull the depth right back. So the depth is now under halfway. Now I'll slow it right down to the slowest it goes. So we've now got minimum depth and minimum rate. Now what I'll quickly do is show you the manual feature on it. So I'll flick it into manual mode. That's manual mode with the pot set to the minimum. So I think you can hear that does kind of do that cocked wire sound, whereas you've got your wire pedal engaged, but you can adjust and leave it in a certain point in its sweep. But obviously the more usual setting is in the auto mode. So that's back now in the auto mode. And the manual shift pot doesn't do anything at the moment, it's completely disengaged. Well, what I'll do now, I'll swap over guitars, get some humbuckers on it, and we'll try the dirty channel of the Marshall. Here we are now with the Epiphone SG. And we'll flip it onto the dirty channel of the Marshall. I should put the depth to minimum. And I've also slowed the rate down a bit. Just for a quick laugh, I'll turn the rate up so you can hear it with a faster rate and a little bit more depth. Well, we hope you enjoyed the video and found that interesting, and we'll see you again soon in the Room of Rock with Ted and I.